Oh, all right. So, welcome to the first episode of the NYC Basement podcast from Longstep Publishing. Longstep Publishing was founded to highlight the work of authors of African and Latin American diasporas, celebrating the colorful, vibrant, and spirited storytelling traditions of novelists, poets, and documentarians. NYC Basement Podcast is part of that mission. I am your host, Shelley Nicole, and I will be speaking to writers about their work, their inspiration, and their world. And today on the podcast, we are speaking with writer, professor Kim McLarin, author of the critically acclaimed novels Taming It Down, Meeting of the Waters, and Jump at the Sun. She is also author of 2 books of essays, Divorce Dog, Motherhood, Men, and Midlife, and her most recent work, Womanish, A Grown Black Woman Speaks of Life and Love. Today, we are excited to speak with Kim about her forthcoming work, Another Country Bookmarked, exploring the seminal work by James Baldwin. Kim McLarin was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and received her bachelor's degree from Duke University. She is currently an associate professor in the Department of Writing, Literature, and Publishing at Emerson College. She is a regular panelist on Basic Black, formerly Say Brother, WGBH Boston's longest-running television program, exclusively devoted to African American life. Kim McLarin's nonfiction writing has appeared in the New York Times, Glamour, Washington Post, and she is a former staff writer for the New York Times, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the Associated Press. Please welcome Kim McLarin to the show. Yay!
Yay, thank you. I'm sorry they made you read all of that. They should have given you the abbreviated version. Kim McLarin is a writer. That's all you need to say.
You know what's funny? I was actually very excited because I'm actually from Newton, Massachusetts. So
Oh, okay.
Emerson
Right down the road.
is kind of close to my heart in terms of like WERS radio when I was coming up, and also
Yep.
Say Brother when I was coming up. And I was just like, wow, yeah. So it was good. It was a pleasure. So thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. Before we get into the book, I just want to talk to you a little bit about, I guess, your, coming up as a writer, and were you always thinking about writing? Were you an avid reader as a child? How did writing like come into your being as a young person?
Yeah, I think like most writers, almost every writer I've ever met, I was a reader. I loved books. I grew up in Memphis. My family did not have a lot of money. We were poor. My mother, after the divorce, was a single mother. And, but she valued education. So she would take us to the library down the street, right? Because it's free.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I just loved books. I was a reader from very early on. I don't remember exactly when, but books were, to me, they weren't even, I don't want to use the word escape as a kind of expansion outside of they gave me a window into the world beyond the world which I was living, which was not easy. It wasn't the hardest, but it certainly wasn't the easiest. And so I just loved books. I loved reading. And from very early on, I started writing. I've told the story a million times that the first story I wrote when I was in, I don't know, first or second grade was about a mouse that I went to my aunt's house, my great aunt's house, and went into the basement for something, and there was a mouse in the trap, and I was so traumatized. Oh, the poor little mouse is dead, right? So now I'm like, ugh, nice, right? But I was a much more sympathetic child than I am adult, I guess. And so I wrote a little story about it, and I don't know where that spark came from. It wasn't until much later, maybe 8th or 9th grade, when I went to the library and I found, I remember very clearly this moment, although I don't remember how old I was. I saw Maya Angelou's face on the back of a book, right? There was a book on the shelf, and there's this Black woman, which is the first time I'd seen a Black woman author. I'd been reading books, but it had never occurred to me, and I'd been writing, but it had never occurred to me until that moment that I could be a writer, because I saw it and I turned it around. I Know Why Caged Bird Sings, read that. And from then on, I thought, well, maybe this is something I can do, is be a writer. So pretty early on, I've known that I wanted to be a writer. And that's an incredible gift. I feel incredibly blessed to have always known, really.
Yeah.
That's what I was put here to do. Whether I could do it was a different story.
But I think oftentimes, I mean, I don't think we know this until later, but it's usually the clarity of when we were children that it is that thing. A lot of us don't follow that thing, but if we
Yeah.
are, as you said, blessed to be able to, move into the thing that is our passion as a child, that's really it.
Yeah.
So yeah, give thanks for that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so moving forward, I know that your most recent work is Womanish, and I have to admit, I just started reading the book, and I was given the book to check out, and of course, the essay that stood out for me at this present moment was Becky and Me, because there's so many Beckys and Karens running around these days.
Yeah, we are definitely inundated with Karens, but we
Yeah.
always have been,
We
right? The name
always have
change,
been. We always
right?
have been. And I think that's an interesting thing. Like, as I was reading the essay, and of course, as a Black woman, I know this story. But have you, I guess, in publishing this story, what has been the response, I guess, from white women? Or have they responded to you? Or, is
Oh
that,
yes,
oh,
oh yes, it's been interesting. Yeah, that essay has gotten a lot of attention. I have a wonderful friend, Vanessa Williams. We call her the real Vanessa Williams,
right.
a sister, a Black woman, and she's an editor at the Washington Post. And so she actually took an excerpt from that and published it on one of their newsletters, which is a newsletter for women, and that generated apparently on Facebook a whole lot. Unfortunately, I'm not on Facebook, but apparently on Facebook it blew up and generated a whole lot of controversy and feedback. And I've gotten emails from white women, usually pleading for understanding, pleading for me to not be so, harsh. Um, wanting to have a dialogue, which like I didn't write that so I could have a dialogue. I wrote that so you would look at yourself, right? But that the book was published before this current moment. It was published in January 2019, and so there was still some resistance to this idea. Like, there were white women who were defensive. Not to say there aren't now, but now I think it's harder for good liberal white women to be resistant to the truth, right? Before then, it was still, why are you so bitter? Why are you so angry? Why are you so hostile? Why are you saying these terrible things, right? Whereas now, no thoughtful person can say that.
Right.
So it's been interesting. And when I read that, I read from that at readings, and there's usually like some shocked eyes and some silence in the bookstore, but it is what it is. My editor actually just asked me if I wanted to expand that into a whole book, but I said, you know what? I think I've actually said everything I had to say on the subject.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and it's up to white women to change or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like in this moment, so many of us as Black people have been getting those phone calls, especially in light of the death of George Floyd. The what can I do phone calls, or the can you give me the reading list phone calls, or
right. Exactly.
And it's
they were coming fast and furious right out in the immediate aftermath. I mean, and from strangers. I mean, it's one thing to get people but I actually went off on one white woman because I said, you're perpetuating the very privilege, right? This fact that this woman reached out to me, asked me to tell her what to do, as if that's my job, right? To give her the reading list and the checklist. And so that's very much part of your privilege. It's not my responsibility. It's not my job. And it would take work from me, and you're not paying me. So
right. I think that's the part that people forget. Like, it's work. I think
it's
people
work.
just think we just have the list. It's in the drawer. Let's just pull that up and send it to you. Like, yeah, come on. I agree.
Pay me. Pay me.
Absolutely. I was also looking, it's interesting because I was reading that particular essay, and then I went back and started to look at another country. And, just as a segue, it was really interesting to me because I don't know if you made this connection, if it was even a thought when you were picking the book, but in the first 10 pages of that book, Rufus Scott, when he's meeting Leona, he calls her Miss Anne.
Yes. Yes.
And I was like, I was like, oh, I wonder if this was sort of like when you were thinking about choosing that book, if those things came to mind, or if that's just a happy accident. But tell me, when you were choosing another country and why you chose that book as opposed to all of the rest of the Baldwin canon? What drew you to that at this time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I didn't make that specific connection between him calling her Miss Anne, but I think what that reveals is that this phenomenon of white women perpetuating racism, and asking to be excused um, from the condemnation of that because they are women, right? Wanting to have their cake and eat it too, or eat their cake and have it too. It goes back. It goes back to Baldwin. And of course, it goes back to slavery, which is the
Sure.
original Miss Anne, right? So this is a issue that Black people have been aware of and writing about. Black writers have been writing about since Frederick Douglass and Harriet Jacobs wrote about this phenomenon in their slave narratives. Harriet Jacobs wrote about this in her slave narrative. So it doesn't surprise me that that's the connection, but that wasn't the reason I chose Another Country. I chose Another Country because it's just always been my favorite James Baldwin novel. The editor of the series asked me to write, part of this series, and he said, you can choose whatever book you want, whatever novel you want. And that's always been my favorite Baldwin novel. It's been interesting rereading it now at this age compared to when I first read it and fell in love with it, which was maybe, at least 25 years ago, as old as my daughter is. You get different things out of it, and you take different issues away from it. And I think part of the reason it struck me at that time was because at that time I was, my husband was white, my ex-husband's white. And so I was involved in an interracial relationship. My second novel, what's the name of my second novel? Meeting of the Waters. I forgot my own title. My second novel, Meeting of the Waters, is about an interracial relationship that's set during the Rodney King uprisings, because I covered that as a journalist. Okay. So that issue of interracial relationships and looking at those honestly was something that was really important to me at that time. And I think that's part of the reason Another Country became my favorite novel. So that's the reason I chose it. It's just my favorite novel, and I wanted to revisit it. And I'm glad I did, because I read it differently now than I did then, for better and for worse. So it's been a journey. It's been a real journey.
Right. So tell us about the Bookmarked series, because I'm not familiar with it. So what exactly is it? And I'm getting the gist of it, meaning you're taking a novel that you love and sort of expanding or, putting your thoughts into it. But what is the series, and can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. It's published by IG Publishing, which published my book of essays, Womanish. And they're a wonderful small press based in New York City that does really quality work and really values their writers, which not all publishing companies do. So I'm very grateful for that. And they have this series that's been going on for a while now, in which they ask writers to write about a book that made a mark on them. It's called Bookmarked,
okay,
right?
So got it.
So just write about a book that meant something to you in some way, shaped your own work, shaped your being, shaped your person, shaped anything. So that's really the only mandate. And some people might write a kind of scholarly, critical analysis of a book. Some people might just say, I read this book when I was 16, and then they write about being 16 and they barely mention the book, right? So it varies from author to author, but it's really just write about a book that made a mark on you, that really, and it's a testament to the power of literature, right? So write about a book that changed who you are, how you think, how you operate in this world, as a testament to the value and the power of novels in particular. Because I think most of these are novels. I think most people are writing about novels. So the value of novels, of fiction.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's the point.
Baldwin and his impact on you, because I know I was also researching, and I know that Baldwin is a hero of yours. And when did he enter your life? Like, what was the first time you really felt him or read him or saw him, or what was your first encounter, or do you remember?
I don't remember, and it's an interesting question. It's something I've really been excavating for a couple of years now, because in my collection of essays, Divorce Dog, I wrote an essay called How James Baldwin Saved My Life. And I don't mean that literally, because I never met him, but I do mean it literally.
Yeah.
And so in writing that essay, I tried to excavate when he became important to me. I mean, James Baldwin right now is hot, right? Everybody's James Baldwin, James Baldwin. But I'm just going to say, I was into James Baldwin before he became hot, right? So it goes back at least 25, 30 years. And the nearest I can pinpoint the story I wrote in that essay that I do remember is that when I was on my first book tour, so for my first novel, so this was a long time ago, I published that novel in 1998. And so before the Baldwin upswing. And I was at a reading, and there was a Black man, a brother, in the back of the bookstore just scowling at me as I was reading. But he's standing behind the crowd and he's scowling. And I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do? And this, for context, this is kind of at the tail end of the whole Black male writers accusing Black women writers, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, of being anti-Black male, right? When the Color Purple came out,
yes,
they were like, oh, you're just trying to make all Black men look like rapists and dogs, right? You know, Ishmael Reed and I think Amiri Baraka and all these brothers really went after Black women for, they said, you know, trashing Black men. So this was at the tail end of this, and I was only vaguely aware of that. So I look up, and this brother is scowling at me, and he raises his hand and says, "Oh, all you want to do." I guess I had read a section in my novel in which a Black man did behave badly. It was a small section, but all you want to do is trash with brothers. You probably don't even read any Black men, blah, 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 blah. And so I felt attacked, and I kind of blanked, and I said, yes, I do read, Black men writers. I love Black men writers. And he said, well, name one. And my mind went blank. I couldn't think of Ralph Ellison or, Richard Wright or something. But for whatever reason, James Baldwin popped to mind. So I said, James Baldwin. And he kind of like snuff and went on about his way. But so I didn't even know where that came from, because I hadn't been into James Baldwin at that moment. I don't know if I saw his name out the corner of my eye, whatever. But I figured, okay, maybe this is a sign that I need to go investigate James Baldwin. So I did. So I just started reading James Baldwin, and I just fell in love with him. I thought, why wasn't I taught James Baldwin in school? Why wasn't I taught him in college? Because he saved my life in that, one, he told me that all the things I was thinking, because again, this is in the late 90s, and I had been thinking this since college, when I was still saying race and white supremacy is still a problem in this country. Right. And people are saying, no, it's not. What's wrong with you? Why are you so bitter? Why are you so angry? People in my own family, my own ex-husband, frankly, right? We're like, stop talking about race. In talking about race, you're perpetuating racism. And I'm like, no, things are still really bad here, and nobody seems to be acknowledging it. And so you start thinking you're crazy, right? And then I read James Baldwin, and he said, no, you're not crazy. It is really just this bad.
Right.
So one, he confirmed my view of America as being deeply, deeply, almost, irrevocably enmeshed in white supremacy and racism, and unwilling to acknowledge that, and therefore unlikely to overcome it. So he confirmed that I wasn't crazy that way. But he also confirmed that the way I viewed the world was because I was a writer, because I was an artist. Right. And artists do view the world in a particular way, and it can be very painful. It can be overwhelming. There's a reason that writers commit suicide. And, at that time I was very depressed. And again, I was like, am I crazy? And he said, no, you're not crazy. You're an artist.
Right.
And that did save my life. It saved my life. So that's what James Baldwin meant to me. And so then I just read him and read him and read him and read him. And everything I read, I thought, oh my God, this man is just the clearest thinker and seer. And he just won't accept bullshit. Excuse my French, right?
Yes.
And that's what I wanted to do. That's who I wanted to be. That's how I wanted to live.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I think it's interesting when certain writers sort of come into fashion, but of course they've been there. But I think to your point, the things that he had been talking about for so long, I think people just thought he was, like, why, like you said, why are you talking about this?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like, are you serious? And even in his time when it was in the forefront and things were
exactly,
really, really not good,
exactly.
you
That's
know,
right.
and
And still people called him bitter. I mean, towards the end of his life, he was written off as bitter. I've read some reviews of his later books in which, in the New York Times, they said he's bitter, he's angry, he's passé now. The things he's complaining against no longer exist, and let's just stop talking about him. But he never stopped sounding the alarm
right.
up until he died. And had we listened to him,
I know.
right?
But here we are, right? And it's
Here we are.
here
Yeah.
we are, here we are. Yeah, thank you for sharing that about him, and your connection to him, because he is so, so important and continues to just resonate in so many different ways. I mean, I don't know if you know, but like Michelle Cello did a whole musical piece on him called No More Water But the Fire Next Time, the Gospel of James Baldwin. Yeah, she did that in 2018. Really beautiful piece. So people are really exploring him in a lot of different ways in this time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, he's very
definitely.
hot now, which I think is great because
Yeah.
he speaks to one of my favorite things about him is in from his biographer who said when he was dying, literally when he was dying, and he was so weak because he had cancer
Yeah.
that he couldn't walk to his writing table, and he would ask his brother David to carry him to his writing table every
Mm,
day.
mm,
And his brother said, "Why are you doing this? Why are you keep doing this?" He knew he was dying. And he said, it's so when it all comes to ruin, and it will, when the whole country comes to ruin, the generations that come after digging in the rubble, can find something of my work and use it to begin again. Right? I mean, so even when he was dying, he was trying to help us go forward.
yes.
That's a man. I mean, that's an ancestor right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So when, or do you know around when your look at another country will be coming out? Do you know, can you tell
Yes, it's
us?
scheduled for publication in February 2021. So yeah, this coming February. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yes, definitely look out for that. And just pivoting a little bit as we are in this moment again. I mean, for us, we're always in this moment of Black Lives Matter because Black lives always matter. But I also was reading that you are part of the MCI Concord prison writing program. Are you still a part of that?
Yes, it's actually, this is through Emerson. It's the Emerson Prison Initiative. So
Okay.
Emerson College, to its great credit, and I'm very honored to be working at a college that would do this, has
Mm-hmm.
begun a prison initiative based on the Bard Prison Initiative,
Mm.
which offers a 4-year bachelor degree.
Wow.
Same requirements as what's offered on our campus in an institution. In our case, it's Concord,
Right.
MCI Concord. So I'm on the board. I'm on the board of that organization, the Emerson Prison Initiative, and I taught at Concord not this past spring, but a year ago spring,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope to teach there again. It was an extraordinary experience,
Mm.
one of the greatest teaching experiences I've had, and my great honor. And yeah, I'm doing everything I can to help this program. It's pretty new. We've only been in existence maybe 3 years now, and we hope to have our first graduating class, in another year or so. Of course, everything with the pandemic is
Right.
up for grabs now.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an amazing moment when we have our first graduating class. It's a 4-year degree, so it's not just a writing program. It's an actual bachelor's degree that we are offering. Same rigor, same
Wow.
requirements, same expectations as the students at the Emerson Boston campus are earning. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
That's amazing. Wow. Yeah, I saw
very
that and I was
important.
like, that's, yeah, so necessary. And really what, when we talk about, or what, at least when I think about, the changes and that need to happen, it's really that kind of thing about, not just sending people to prison and leaving them there, and also just thinking about mass incarceration and the whole prison industrial complex and what that is. That's a whole other conversation.
It's huge. It's huge. We don't want to get into it, but I will say that I encourage people to support these kinds of programs because
Mhm.
for exactly that reason. It is, I mean, this is the kind of real racial justice we can do. I mean, it's nice to paint Black Lives Matters on the street in somewhere. That's all well and good.
Right.
It's even nice to take down statues. I think statues need to come down. They're horrible, but I'm really interested in the kind of structural work we can do to bring about racial justice in this society. And this is one area, because of mass incarceration, we know who's in these prisons, and we know what happens to them in these prisons, and it's not good. And there's so few opportunities for education, for self-improvement, for them to do better. And it's also just in our own selfish interest as a society, because the truth is the majority of people who go to prison are coming back out, right? Sooner or later, they're coming back out. How do you want them to come back out?
That's exactly.
You want them to come back angry and broken and abused, or, educated, thoughtful, and productive. It's our choice, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that too. And I know that your book, Divorce Dog, that you're turning into a one-woman show. So tell me about that. Are you acting in the one-woman show? Or are you just writing it? Oh, okay.
Goodness, no.
Because I was like, is she an actress as well?
Honestly, I thought about it for a minute. I did acting when I was in college, but that's a long time ago. And it's hard enough. I've never written a play before. And after Divorce Dog came out, several people whose opinion I respect, because I wouldn't just do it anyway, but several people, actors, and incredible, the wife of one of my colleagues, Liana Asim, who's an amazing actress and writer and producer herself, and director, and then another colleague at Emerson, who was the head of the performing arts department, all said, this would make a great one-woman show. So people kept saying it to me, and I went, okay. So then I sat down and tried to turn it into a one-woman play, which is more than a notion. It's, I've written a lot of work, essays, novels, short stories, even some poetry, but writing a play is a completely different thing. So it's taken some time, but I've had a couple of read-throughs. We did a staged reading at a theater in Ithaca, New York, the Kitchen Theater in Ithaca, New York, in front of an audience of Black women, and that was fantastic. They loved it, and I was so thrilled. One woman said to me, "It reminds me of For Colored Girls," and I burst into tears, because that is, high cotton. That's high cotton, as we say, right? You said it's high cotton now. So that's where it is right now. I'm revising it, and right now I don't have any plans for a full production. But that's, so it's exciting. It's just it's kind of a narrative of connecting the essays, and then you have to create a story through it.
Sure.
So,
Wow, that's amazing. I'm a theater person, so I'm always like interested in what people are working on and what's coming forth, especially from Black women and Black writers. So yes, please, looking forward.
Keep you informed. Yeah. We have an amazing actress. My brain, I'm so old. Miranda, who's been working in it. So I'm not an actress, so I would not be performing it. But I think when I get it done, it'll be a wonderful vehicle for a Black actress. I would love to have it staged all across the country. So we'll see.
Because one day we will gather again.
We
will gather again, though. I'm sure of that. I'm confident. Even though it seems a little crazy, I am confident we will gather again.
Yes.
So before we close, is there anything else you want to share? Anything else forthcoming that I missed, or something that's on your mind, or anything that you're like, she didn't ask me, I need to say this? It's,
Oh, that's a really good question. No, I think you covered everything. Okay. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me, and just keep plugging in.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the program, being our first guest. This is amazing. Really, really excited. And we are looking forward to forthcoming book, Another Country, Bookmarked. And we'll make sure that we let everybody know. I mean, we're letting everybody know now, but as the time gets closer, to remind all of our listeners. And I just think that, like I was saying before, there's never a wrong time to revisit Baldwin. So
That's
thank
right. I
you.
agree. Everybody should do it often. Read Baldwin early and often, and
Early.
we'll all be better for it. So thank you so much for your time. I really
You're
appreciate it.
so welcome, and have an awesome rest of your day.
You too. Okay.
Okay,
Take care. Bye
bye.
bye.
So thank you all for listening to the NYC Basement Podcast. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star review or subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Please share with everyone you know. If you'd like your business featured on the show, please email us at nycbasementpodcast@gmail.com. And on that note, please don't forget to support your local businesses at this time as we are still in a global pandemic. And you can also email all questions and suggestions and compliments to nycbasementpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us. NYC Basement Podcast is produced by Chris Dozier and is an offshoot of Long Step Publishing Company, LLC.